Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Rotten Potatoes Reviews. We are reviewing the movie Christopher Robin, which we've just gotten back from the theater.
Yes. And what a film it was.
Yeah, it was a film that I loved.
It was pretty
Lots
good.
of
Very
feels.
Yes.
Yes,
Hit me right in the feels.
Yes. Lots of feels. Very nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
I didn't grow up watching Winnie the Pooh.
I did.
And so this movie didn't mean a whole lot to me. I mean, I saw it a little bit.
Have you read any of the books?
No.
I've got the books at home if you want.
No, I'm
Is
really
that
okay.
relevant to our viewers?
I'm really okay. The point I'm trying to make is that when I saw advertisements for the movie, of course I'm familiar with Winnie the Pooh, and I saw it a little bit as a kid, some of the animated series. But I didn't. I was never really attached to it. By the time I saw it, I had other things I liked more, and it never was sort of the thing for me. So I was interested in seeing that they were bringing it back, like in this interesting sort of send off kind of piece. But at the same time, it wasn't something that I was like looked at and said I'm really personally invested in.
So that means if you never grew up with Winnie the Pooh, you don't understand the things like heffalumps and boozles.
No. I saw enough of it to know
you
that.
understand them?
Oh no, I understand those. But like Winnie the Pooh was something that I encountered and watched, like because I had like little brothers and stuff.
Not because.
So I'm familiar with it, but it's not something that I started with. You understand? Like it's not something that I personally grew up with at the right times. It's something that I know about, that I'm familiar with, but not that it wasn't me that it connected with. It probably wasn't my little brother's either, because I don't think either one of them gives a shit about Winnie the Pooh.
Well, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I was the little brother of my family, so Mom had already bought, videotapes of Winnie the Pooh that were passed down from my oldest brother to my middle brother to me. And, we were never been that well off, so we didn't buy a bunch of new stuff. We had all that old stuff that was hand-me-down, and I grew quite a bit of an attachment to Winnie the Pooh, an attachment that recently resurfaced, having played through Kingdom Hearts, and now with this movie showing, it definitely hit a lot of notes that I recall from my childhood. I'm hesitant to call it a kid's movie, really, but it's a movie for the kid in heart in those of us that grew up.
It's a family movie.
It's a family movie.
Yeah.
Very kid-friendly. Mostly kid-friendly.
I have thoughts on that.
We'll get to that in a minute. What did you guys think?
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I thought it was, it played back to a lot of the nostalgia. I mean, from the Pooh Sticks and the tea parties, all of that went on in the 100 Acre Wood. They brought a lot of that back and threw those elements in, but not in a way of trying to copy the shorts that were made back in the 1950s and 60s.
The originals.
Right. By the way, there will be some spoilers in this review, so you've been warned.
Yeah, we'll put something about that in the description or something.
Yeah, but it shows. They've kept. Pooh and all of his friends have kept playing the same games, doing the same sorts of activities, just without Christopher Robin, and it's kind of that melancholy feel of this person who is really the biggest part of their existence, and really the only reason for their existence is no longer a part of all of that, and the journey that goes with that.
Yes, I loved how they stayed pretty well true to the books and like the original movies that they came out with, and like on the opposite side of what was like 100 Acre Woods without Christopher Robin, it shows like Christopher Robin leaving and the process of him growing up. There was a moment like I almost cried when he comes back from the war, and like his daughter hasn't seen him, like so she doesn't recognize him. I mean, she's already like 3 or 4 years old at this point. And could you imagine not like your daughter not recognizing you? And like your wife having to tell your daughter, "Hey, this is your father." It was like that kind of struck a chord with me.
And they definitely made a really nice parallel to later in the movie where Yor and all the rest of the 100 Acre Wood gang didn't recognize Christopher Robin himself
Yes.
after all these years having
Yes.
grown up,
Yep.
looking different. And
acting different was the
Acting.
biggest part.
acting
Yeah.
very different.
Because Pooh had no trouble recognizing him at all.
But
Yeah.
the rest of them.
Well, and there too is him acting different was a big part of that, because as soon as Christopher Robin is back and starts playing again, fighting the heffalumps and everything,
Yeah.
that's when everybody actually recognizes that, oh, this guy is Christopher Robin, who we used to play with all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things you mentioned was that there was sort of a somber, sort of melancholy tone throughout the whole movie. And prior to the release of the film, a lot of people I saw online were bashing the designs of the Winnie the Pooh characters because they felt they were like sort of almost scary looking, almost, or rugged or raggedy.
But that's
But I think it fits the tone of the film very
Well,
well.
if you
not
wa-
only that, but going back to a point that Billy touched on earlier, is it's very true to the books, and the way they designed the characters
That's accurate
is
to
very true to the
dolls.
artwork.
well, and dolls of the era.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a stuffed bear. It's not mine. I'm not sure if it belonged to my mom or my grandmother, but I have a stuffed bear down in my basement that is from that era, and it looks like that. I mean,
Yeah.
the materials, the models that they used, the CGI really did a good job of representing that toy-like feel. I'll have more to say about that a little bit later. I'll let you guys keep going on your own thing because I've got more to talk about that later. But
Also, like if you've seen like the original Winnie the Pooh movies, like the very opening scene as the opening credits are rolling, pans across Christopher Robin's
His
room.
bedroom.
His bedroom.
Yeah.
You can see like his toy chest, and you can see Winnie the Pooh, Rabbit, Tigger, Kangaroo, all of them like sitting like on the shelf, on the floor, on the toy chest, and that's what they look like.
And they were real toys.
Yeah.
That segment.
Yes.
Speaking of those particular segments, I appreciated their use of the sort of Winnie the Pooh sort of theme song that was so prevalent in the old
Yes.
cartoons and
Yeah.
films. I like the way that they made that so prevalent in the film.
And that, like,
It was.
that's
but at the
something
same
I
time,
wanna-
it was subtle.
It was very subtle, and I think that that's definitely a good thing. Like I actually,
I definitely
teared up
wanted
myself.
to touch on that. It's like, being a musician myself, I really pay attention to what's going on musically in the background in movies, and I just gotta say, in this one, everything was spot on. Everything, like all the different motifs they used, the themes, fit the mood of what was going on. I mean, it set that somber, melancholy tone throughout most of the movie, where Like, I mean, because all of Pooh's friends in the 100 Acre Wood are lost. I mean, but really, it's Christopher Robin who's lost, and kind of got this juxtaposition, I guess,
Yes.
there
Yeah.
between that, and but even through the scenes where they're chasing after Madeline through the city, or he's racing to get back to his meeting because he overslept in the 100 Acre Wood, and that sense of urgency, like the music just backs that up and intensifies all of these emotional things that are going on through the whole movie.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they throw in those motifs from the original Winnie the Pooh themes, and that just sends everything way over the top, in my opinion. Just very powerful musically in the movie.
Going solely based off of presentation, I feel like the movie did a very good job representing, what Winnie the Pooh sort of stood for, childlike innocence, but also it has this overlying theme of growing up and not letting go of what the kid inside of you.
Yeah,
And being in the age we're living in, a lot of things like that is looked down upon, especially amongst our generation. And I think this is a bit of a good reminder, that there are important things in life, but you can't lose sight of just those kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, in that way, I feel like this is very much a social commentary and reminding us not to get so caught up in our work and everything that goes on with our adult lives to the point where we forget about what's really important.
Family, friends.
Family, friends, and all of those connections that go with that.
Billy, any thoughts on this?
I have nothing to say at this point.
Okay,
All right,
so
let's
it's my
turn
turn.
it over to Benji.
Yeah,
his thoughts.
I have been waiting for this because once again I find myself. You behind the camera don't know, but generally, when it's my turn to talk is when things go the other direction. So I feel like that had a different connotation to it.
It's all right. We'll roll with it.
We're rolling with it. So I feel like I don't think anything in this film was bad.
Coming from you, that's a high compliment.
Technically, on a technical level, it's very, very well done. I really like the visuals, the aesthetic, especially applied to the dolls, but also in the choice of the color palettes that were used was nice.
Almost had a Technicolor feel to it without being Technicolor.
I don't know that I would say that.
Or not Technicolor.
There are certain scenes.
Yeah, the
that
100
have-
Acre Wood scenes.
Not all of them.
But
So
not
this is
all
like
of
the triumphant ones
Yes,
at the end.
Yes.
Yes. Every other time, no. It has a this very muted color palette, which kind of connects to my biggest issue with this movie, is that there's a disconnect between concept and execution. And I think conceptually, with the trailers, and I think that the movie itself backs it up, I think the really cool idea that this movie was going for, that I feel like was the core of the inception of this movie, was Christopher Robin reconnects with this part of his youth, and we see these animals that we know often either as illustrations or as cartoons transplanted into a real world. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is the first time they've been in live action. Yes?
I'm reasonably certain as well.
Yeah, okay. And I mean, we already know it's in England, but the specific choice of the post-war setting and all of that, I feel like adds to the division they want to make very clear between the whimsical 100-Acre Wood and the drab and utilitarian and crowded and chaotic London and England post-war. And so I feel like the concept is, let's have that juxtaposition, and we'll use that to kind of show this sort of like why those ideas are incompatible at first, it seems, but then we learn something from one to the other. But I don't want to say the halfway point of the movie, but maybe earlier than that, the movie becomes a pretty typical family talking animal, fish out of water adventure movie that's kind of goofy and cartoony. When you see that intro, where it's like the pages of the book and it's showing you through Christopher Robin's life, I mean, it gets fucking real. Like, people die. We see him getting shot at during the war, and there are explosions, and
Directed
like
by Michael Bay.
but they're trying to show this. They're really trying to emphasize the realism of the world they want to set it in. But then it just kind of becomes a goofy, we gotta learn to, as adults, to be a little bit of a kid again, which, I mean, that's been done a million times before.
Absolutely. But is there a problem with that?
There's not necessarily a problem with that, except that the cool thing about this movie was that idea of the juxtaposition of reality and the fantasy world of the 100-Acre Wood. Is there anything wrong with treading over that again? Well, no, but that doesn't mean that just because there's not anything wrong with it doesn't mean that it's also good. Like, not the film is good. I've established that. Like, there's nothing technically wrong with it. But in terms of what it's trying to do, it's not anything new. It's not anything novel. It's applying a very famous face and brand to a thing we've seen before. Mm-hmm. And the cartoonishness of what starts happening, after that midpoint, the escapades, you can really tell. Like, you can almost see in the way the puppet characters are moving becomes more bouncy and lifelike.
I think a lot of that has to do with Tigger.
No, I mean, but jokes aside, like when we first see Pooh moving around on the screen in the earlier parts of the movie, he does have these very stiff puppet-like movements that make it look like he is an animated toy. But as the film goes on, these other characters they're not moving like that. They're bouncing around. There's more stuff flying everywhere. Like, you can clearly, and you can tell an aesthetic shift. When it's slow, when it's calm, when it's Christopher Robin and Pooh there together in those first, say, 30 or 40 minutes, it's a really compelling, interesting thing where he's coming to terms with this part of his childhood that he's left behind. And I feel the slower pace, the slower movements of the characters and stuff like that, I feel that blends together. And then when they start getting the gang all back together, it becomes bouncy fun. Oh, everything going at once. And I'm sure that's really great for children in the audience.
You feel like it clashes with the tone.
I feel like it clashes with the tone because you have in the same film Christopher Robin being like shot at in the Battle of the Bulge, like, or wherever it is. I mean, is it the Ardennes? I don't know. I'm not a.
This isn't a World War II history discussion,
but it is a World War II era movie.
Film.
And in it, he gets shot at and things explode behind him, and he desperately cries for reinforcements. And also in the movie, the cartoonish, oafish villain, like, accidentally, fumbles around and tosses a golf ball across the room, revealing that, oops, he's actually been playing us all, and that he's actually been doing golf instead of, that's just a complete, at the early part of the movie, there's so much trying to sell the idea that that the real world is a different place than the 100-Acre Wood. And I feel like by the end, they stopped trying. And it's just, oh, it's an adventure with Pooh and his friends and the family of Christopher Robin.
Well,
One could say that that's intentionally supposed to be a change, that that's intentionally supposed to expose how Christopher Robin is, like, reconnecting and becoming more childlike again. But why does that affect everybody else around him? Why does the movie suddenly get so much more? Because it starts off this somber, reflective kind of tone. And why does everything get goofier towards the end, other than to keep children's butts in their seats?
to be fair, this is kind of a thing that Winnie the Pooh, in and of itself, as a franchise, is already established. A lot of these, it's more of a problem with, writing and fiction as an entirety. A lot of the old shorts started with sort of a like a bit of a problem similar to this that could only be solved by working together and all this stuff, and it goes from being a big problem to friendship saves the day and all that. It's more of a problem with writing as an entirety than less of just a problem.
That's just the setup of a conflict and then a resolution. I'm talking about the tone of the film.
And I'm not saying I disagree. I personally actually would have liked to see a little bit more of a contrast in tone between the 100-Acre Woods and the real world. I actually would have liked to see it be more colorful in those parts of the movie.
Well,
But
on that note, I think it was very intentional the way they did that. 'Cause the difference in tone was not between the 100-Acre Wood and the real world. It was between Christopher Robin as this adult who's all business and focused on his work and providing for his family and all of those things, and Christopher Robin, who is playing and being whimsical like he was back in those days, because as soon as he started playing and fighting the heffalumps and that, it stopped being gloomy. The sun came out, and the line in the movie, and if my memory serves me correctly from the shorts way back when, is it's always a sunny day when Christopher Robin comes out to play.
And they did quote that.
yeah, that's true.
And they showed that with the whole atmosphere of everything. And to that end, I also think, like, throughout the whole movie, it's not so much showing a difference, a blending like between the real world and the 100-Acre Wood, but it's a lot of it is showing things through Christopher Robin's eyes and like kind of what's going on in his mind and his conflicts. So as things are blending from his past in the 100-Acre Wood into the real world and all of that, like, that's happening as Christopher Robin's whole mindset is being challenged and changing to incorporate a lot of his childhood whimsical adventures into his adult life.
So what you're saying is that when you enter the 100-Acre Wood,
You can never leave.
you're absorbing 100-acre particles into your body, which make everything more whimsical. And then when you walk out, that radiation spreads, it contaminates, and infects the world around
That's
you.
exactly what he's saying.
Because that's what I'm hearing. And I'm like,
That's exactly what he's saying.
because you're right that it should be about Christopher Robin. I get that. The
But
thing
it
is that there are things in the world that get sillier that Christopher Robin isn't anywhere near, but that are happening.
No, you see,
But
And it
his
changes
daughter,
the tone.
You see, his daughter was also infected. That's why this happened.
Because, well, I mean, it's true.
Okay,
She
okay.
would be infected. No, because here's the thing. The movie was at its absolute best when it was doing these poignant moments between Christopher Robin and Pooh, between Pooh and Piglet, when at that beginning scene where they're throwing his going away party, like, dang, there was some really good stuff there. and halfway through it decides we're not a movie about reflecting on what it means to let go or what it means to come back anymore. We're a movie about, this is fun and adventure. And like, you could have made a good movie out of just that, but you had to sell it. So there had to be the goofy adventure.
And what
I mean, I realized that my dream of an art house movie about Winnie the Pooh coming to terms with loss isn't exactly going to be a financial success.
No, it's not that. It's from a cinematic and like storytelling point of view. Like, they have to show somehow like the entire movie getting lighter.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't. That's completely a choice.
No,
that's just
no.
You don't have to.
Hear me out. No, they have to do that to reflect how Christopher Robin's feeling on the inside. Otherwise, how do we as an audience know? Like, if he's not in those scenes, like how do we know? Like,
but Christopher Robin can act differently instead of the entire world turning into like the Cat in the Hat shit.
It's a
but the entire world didn't really
it's a cinematic tool that they use. I mean, because we don't have the luxury as an audience of being able to read their thoughts like we can in a book. So they have to show us somehow, and they do that by making the mood of the entire movie lighter.
But they didn't have to.
Okay, I think what the problem is, you feel like the movie was at its best during the apex leading up to the midway point. You think it could have ended at the midway point, right?
I don't think it should have ended there. I think there should have still been resolution. I think that Christopher Robin should have connected and realized the error of his ways. I'm not saying I disagree with the plot, but I think a slower, measured movie about the connection between Christopher Robin and these characters would have still been fine without needing to like jam a goofy adventure in there. Because the early trailers were not like, oh, this is going to be a goofy adventure. These was like, man, this is going to hit you right in the feels the whole way through, and it's going to be real sad. Like, and as the trailers went on, they're like, oh, yeah, there's some people flying around now. The Piglet hits a windscreen and dies. You know, like...
Piglet does not die, by the way.
Eeyore does.
He takes his own life.
Yeah.
No,
I annotate the shit out of this video now.
I feel like...
Annotations on YouTube in the year of our Lord 2018? Come on, man.
I feel like...
Use closed
I understand what you're trying to say, but at the same time, you know, this is something I came in expecting out of this movie. It's a Disney movie. It's a Winnie the Pooh movie. I expected all of this to resolve in that kind of way, and I feel like you're over exaggerating how much the rest of the world changed. Yeah, he changed, his kids changed, and his wife changed. And a couple people were terrified and traumatized for the rest of their life by hearing a talking stuffed animal. But the rest of the world didn't really change. I mean, like one guy got traumatized. He ran into someone else's newspaper stand. And then they both were traumatized. But that's the extent of them affecting the rest of the world. Yeah, Christopher Robin is sort of being a more energetic, bouncy individual now that he's been reinvigorated with his childlike innocence, but I feel like you're over exaggerating how much it had an effect.
Okay,
and yes, he did at the end of the film, convince his boss that his.
Oh yeah, by the way, that resolution, like that's how they're going to save money is by giving all of their employees paid vacation. And those employees will buy.
We'll talk about that in a minute. The resolution they should have had was Pooh and the other ones playing gin rummy with their neighbor. But
see, that would be great. That would have been a great ending.
Actually, that should have been
saving
that should have been a post-credit scene.
Would have been a good post-credits scene, or Disney, if you're watching this, as a short before another one of your films.
No, full-fledged sequel. I want Winnie the Pooh plays Gin Rummy.
Winnie the Pooh's Gin Rummy adventure. Oh, mother, who wants a gin?
Oof.
That'll-
Winnie the Pooh discovers gin.
That'll get kids' butts in the seats, I guarantee.
Yeah.
Oof.
Okay, let me phrase my complaint a different way. Because I don't think it's a problem that there is a change in the world, but that so much of it is predicated on this Goofy adventure that then has to happen. Goofy's not in the movie. But
Oh gosh.
but no, okay. Tell me all the lessons that Christopher Robin learns from re-encountering Pooh in the game. There's the whole bit with nothing comes from nothing, and then that gets turned around to the best somethings come from nothing, right? That gets turned around. Okay, that's a lesson.
Lumps don't exist.
He learns to play again, and that's kind of it. Like, they set those up, and then they get resolved. And that's sort of it. I feel like with the slower pace, with more focus on interactions between the characters and stuff, there could have been room for us to see more of the growth and change in Christopher Robin instead of like, oh, he's got to go on an adventure now, so now he's like a kid again.
Well, if you kept this,
I think the biggest disconnect there from the pace of the whole rest of the movie is the adventure through the city when everyone has exited the 100-Acre Wood and is in London and doing all of their silly shenanigans, going through the city trying to get the papers back to Christopher Robin. Is that where you're seeing the biggest disconnect there with the pace?
Yeah, that is the biggest disconnect with the pace.
I think I can concede that.
Because
that is a big disconnect.
Like,
with
it's
the pace.
just a... Yeah, I think that's really my biggest problem with the movie is this chase.
It went from being a fairly slow-paced part,
Yes.
moving and then it went just kind
Because
of
I
100
don't
miles
have a
an hour.
problem with the things that happen in the 100-Acre Wood.
I can agree with you that the pacing
Also,
is
there's a lot of death imagery.
Yes, there is. We'll get to that in a minute. But I can agree that the pacing has its share of problems, but at the same time, how long did this movie last? Like 2 hours? Because
Yeah, about 2 hours.
we got in there about
Here,
6.
I'll check. You guys continue talking.
Either way, if we would have
Well-
kept the slow pace, and even if it was just a gradual increase, the movie
Yeah,
would
it's
have
about
been
2 hours.
significantly longer.
Yeah, 'cause we got
Meaning
here at 9.
less kids
got
are going to
here
be
at 9.
interested in it.
We started at 6:45,
Meaning
so
that
it's
less
about
people
2
will
hours.
sit for the full movie.
1 hour, 43 minutes.
Yeah, so about a little less than 2 hours. I think if they would have sort of gradually increased, the pacing of the movie, it would have made the movie too long for its own good, and a lot of people would have felt
Been
like
bored.
it got bored.
How
with
long did we spend with the chase?
A few minutes.
10 minutes,
Not
maybe?
terribly long.
5 minutes, 10 minutes?
Was it 5 minutes to 10 minutes?
What
I don't know
point
that
do you
it was
qualify
that
as the chase beginning? Like them leaving from the cottage?
Yeah, probably something like that.
Mhm.
What I'm
Okay,
saying
more
is,
about
if
20.
we had spent all that time, if we had had another 20 minutes of slower development, I'm not saying that all the same things that happen, like except for the whole plot about the papers
Sure.
go away, because you realize that like Pooh or it's Tigger. Tigger nearly gets Christopher Robin fired and destroys his life.
It's okay though, he's Tigger.
Yeah,
It must
that's
be
the
forgiven.
that's the kind of bumbling things that Tigger does, though.
Yeah, that's Tigger.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
never put people in jeopardy of living on the streets before. I mean, anyway,
That's not-
my
that's
point
not
is,
specifically
I'll
about
say
the
he's
100-Acre Wood.
Also,
completely
why the
wrecked.
heck did Rabbit not come with them? Like, he's kind of one of the best characters.
Rabbit and Owl are just not in this movie.
And Kangaroo.
I mean,
Rabbit
they
too.
are in this
They
movie,
are,
but they are not in this movie much at all.
Rabbit was kind of like.
And that's Peter Capaldi was
Peter
Rabbit.
Capaldi and Toby. What? I can't remember his
Phones.
last name.
You got a phone? Look it up. That's what I did.
McGuire.
No.
It's not Toby Maguire.
No, but I can
No.
dream.
It's not Spider-Man.
Owl
The
lands
Doctor
on a
and the
bridge.
Master of Dreams.
Owl
For
lands
those
on a
who are
bridge,
Indians.
and he's like, "Pizza time."
But no, Rabbit. He could have added quite a bit to that. Most of it yelling at Tigger, but
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, they
That's
were
gonna feel
leveraging
good.
the most popular characters, the most. Like,
and Piglet. No, I like Piglet. I like Piglet.
but yeah, like, okay, if they were to spend those 20 minutes, doing just some more of what they had been doing before, I feel like we could have gotten something better. And like the kid could have still come into it. The other people could have still come into it. He still could have had to rush back and come to some revelation about his job and then made a presentation that saved everything. And effectively, the ending would be the same. You don't need the
Yeah.
chase to get to where it ended.
Yeah, I do agree. Like,
I think the
chase
chase was
scene-
more of a as trying to set a parallel between him and his daughter. You
Oh
know,
my god. The death
No.
imagery. The tone shift. Christopher Robin drowned. In that hole. He drowned.
next
The rest of
time
the movie
on
is him
Film Theory.
It's like he's passing through to the other side. That's why everything gets so whimsical.
Every day is a sunny day when Christopher Robin comes to play.
That's it. That's what it ends on. Just like and mysterious chimes.
And cut.
That's like, of course, film theory. That's what they're gonna say about
That's
this.
what Matt Pat's
That's-
next film theory
that's
is.
what-
I'm calling it right
We're
now.
calling it right here. I mean,
I mean,
Toby
I'm not
Jones.
fond of you.
not really.
Toby Jones.
Pooh is Ness.
There you go.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Anyway,
so where are we with this
Uh,
review?
I think
Closing thoughts.
overall,
yeah, that's it. We're probably long overdue for closing thoughts right now.
Oh yeah.
All right.
overall, I felt like it was a good interpretation of the Winnie the Pooh cast, and I very much enjoyed it. Not just because I grew up with Winnie the Pooh and from the nostalgia factor. I agree it does have its fair share of problems, but all movies do. But I do think that I agree with you on some points that it needed a less drastic shift in its tone, and that it could have benefited from
The
less
chase scene was a
of the
little bit
chase.
too stereotypical
Yeah.
for a movie chase
Yeah.
scene.
For a movie chase scene to get to the place to stop the bad guy
Yeah.
from doing the thing.
Because, yeah, I mean, let's face it, the rest of it is fairly unique in the way. Not totally unique.
So when this makes a bunch
But-
of money and Disney goes to make a sequel, it's just going to be Pooh and Piglet like in old Jaguars, just like driving down back roads. They're part of the family, Piglet.
I will say, as usual, Jim Cummings' performance is absolutely wonderful. I don't know how I feel about Brad Garrett as Eeyore, though.
I thought they did a good job.
I think he did a passable job.
I think
But now all
no
of-
Peter Cullen, no life.
But now I'm just wanting Everybody Loves Eeyore to be a thing.
on that subject, like, I think all of the voice actors who voiced all of the characters did a spectacular job.
Yes.
They were all pretty true to the original voices without trying to blatantly copy them either.
I'm a little iffy on Piglet. I don't feel like Piglet was very good compared to the original. Everyone else, I think, at least did an admirable job. But Piglet's voice just kind of it took me off guard. It doesn't sound like the Piglet I remember. There was no like fearful stuttering or any of the sort of things that were
Right.
that were
Did he
Piglets.
stutter?
He did.
No,
But maybe
Piglet
that's-
didn't stutter, so that
That
there's
might
one
be-
flaw in the voice acting there.
That might be kind of a they don't want to offend anybody type thing.
I don't know.
What is it with cartoon pigs and stuttering?
I mean, have you ever listened to a pig before?
Okay, so a side note, the guy who actually voiced Porky Pig actually had that stutter. Like that's how he
Oh,
talked.
Mel Blanc, yeah.
No, it was
No.
not Mel Blanc.
No, it wasn't.
No,
No.
it was someone different. I forget his name, but like that's how he talked. He had a speech impediment, and
That doesn't
That-
explain
that's
why Piglet stuttered,
So
or
Bill-
why he didn't
so-
stutter in this movie.
Billy, what are your
Alright.
closing thoughts of this movie?
I loved it. The movie was everything I expected. It was a heartwarming, reconnecting with childhood memories, for remembering what you forgot kind of movie.
So,
And it was
Casey
everything I
aside,
expected.
It's got a lot going for it.
It does. It's nice, but is it like what? Given the choice between this and something like Coco, I'd pick Coco every time.
oh, most definitely.
Oh yeah.
Coco's just that fantastic.
It would depend on what I'm in the mood in.
Yes.
See, if I
Honestly.
want to watch a movie with feels, Coco has more feels. This does not have more feels than Coco.
No, it doesn't. I will say that.
Like if we're talking feels movies of the past 6 months, when did Coco come?
I don't know that I would
November
say
of last
Coco
year.
has
November
more
of last year.
feels.
Oh, never mind.
I would say they have different feels.
Yes.
I guess
Yeah, because we went to see Coco on Thanksgiving last year.
that's right. That's right. All right, but
Well, I do have
Because this
one-
video,
one other quick thought. One of the things that you mentioned in your about how it sort of brought back, feels from when you were a kid. I didn't remember a lot of stuff about Winnie the Pooh, but it did sort of all come back to me as I was watching this movie, and I'm really happy that it did.
Yes.
Yeah. well, I think that was it was designed that way, and a
Yes,
lot
it was
of
most
the imagery from the original shorts and those cartoons, and a lot of the same sayings and all of that came back because there are very unique, very much Winnie the Pooh sayings and imagery, and if you grew up with that, even if it's been 30 years since you've even thought about it, like is the case for Christopher Robin in the movie. As soon as you see these things, it all floods back, and yeah, very, very well done on that end of things.
I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10.
6.5 out of 10.
Too much water from my eyes.
So that's a bad thing.
No, not at all.
All right.
I think I can give it a 7.5 out of 10 as well.
So I give it a 7 out of 10.
Let's balance things
Well-
out. Well, there you have it. That's our review of Christopher Robin.
And if you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching.
Good
Maybe
job.
give it a like, hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of this.
For heaven's sake,
Uh,
I don't even
leave a
sell out
comment
this
or
much on my
whatever.
channel.
Keyblade
But-
Smasher, everybody.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.